lives. 500,000 kids? I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
This is the sound of freedom coming out your speakers. Are they playing hide and seek or finders keepers? Let me define my thesis. While they treasonous deep in the malfeasance, a grand deception, 1,000 reasons, keeping the truth out of our reach, the powers that be. No morale for peace, just war when there's mouths to feed. Covering mouths when they're trying to breathe. A silence that speaks volumes, now the blind can see. See, they lie and deceive. Divide and conquer minds when they try to perceive what's behind the curtains that eyes can't see. Incentivized greed, desensitized breeds, gentrified streets, keeping money centralized leads to total control, to keep a hold of your soul, so you don't own but you owe. On the verge of homeless and thrown in a hole. They really think it's all a game, I can only console and say the rain is over, there's nowhere to go. So
eyes wide open, now and always. I'm breaking out of your chains. Freedom is an option now. Believe the impossible. Wanna take our heroes, bury my faith. Standing inside our faith. Believe the impossible. Freedom is an option now. Freedom is an option now.
we can wait on karma to make him pay, but what's the price of freedom? It seems the darkest of days brings a light in the evening, meaning the steepest of gradients and peaks and failures that we embrace can lead to the rhyme and the reason. Leak the truth and they try to delete them. Elitists is hiding secrets, I'm fleeing sirens while seeking asylum. They creep in the quiet and keep us all divided by beefing, but sheep is their diet and people compliant. By any means we keep our heroes safe. They try to clip their wings while they're flying. The road to freedom's either peaceful or violent. Throw up the peace sign, I might disappear like I'm Satoshi. Walking the silk path, follow Roger if you copy. There's more Assange and Snowden. Weather storms you can answer Romans. If tornadoes leaving the masters beholden. With eyes open, see the devil in disguise. And keep your mind wide open, cause it won't be televised. We arise.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Increasing the block size to 32 megabytes right now. What would be the top 5 arguments that would get hurled against me?
Oh, that's a good one.
There are a few that the big blockers got right.
Ching, like all these coins splash into the wallets of all the winners. I love that.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 133, Saylor Sabotage and BTC Ossification ? Featuring PakoVM today, or PakoVM, I got to get the pronunciation right. Today is Saturday, the 26th of October. I once again forgot to change the slides, but it's been a couple of weeks. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, same as always. Quickly on the price. BCH $352.66 USD scam cents for 100 megasats, which is up. 1 BTC sat buys 190 BCH sats, which is flat, and 1 ETH buys 699.4 megasats, which is up. We're doing well against Ethereum. You love to see that. And a quick announcement, the meme competition is back. Luke Pryor and I are once again running the meme competition. You can look in the Google Drive link on the slides, and I will also post it and pin it on my Twitter profile for all the rules and so forth. There is 2 BCH in total of prizes, including 1 BCH for first place. This year you can submit an image meme like in the past, but the actual main competition is to make a meme cash token. So you got to make a meme cash token, give it a funny image, give it a funny amount of supply, a funny description, and then create memes around it or airdrop it to the community or whatever you want to do to add some hype to the BCH community with a new meme coin will be the majority of what we're looking at. So I'm interested to see what the community comes up with on that front. Okay, our guest today, PakoVM, is a BTC commentator and regular on Twitter, has a skeptical eye, I would say, on all things BTC, but nevertheless a firm believer in the project, and I'm looking forward to getting some unique insights on our episode today. Welcome to the show, Pako. How did you get into Bitcoin?
Hello. Well, Bitcoin, I met it 2 times. First time in 2011. I didn't speak English at the moment, so I tried. It was pretty slow. There was no mnemonic phrase at the moment. I was like, come on, this thing is stupid. Nobody's gonna use it. I forgot about it. And then I came back in 2019, 2020, right before the start of the bull market. Yes, started reading about it with my new insights on a lot of stuff. The thing blew my mind. Yeah.
Yes. So what was it like specifically that got you drawn in then that second time?
Well, it was a mix of the price, of course, and because I needed to send some money to Venezuela, which was my country, and I was looking for ways to do it. Bitcoin seemed like a good alternative there. It worked pretty well, and it still works pretty well for that matter.
Yeah, the whole situation in Venezuela is not actually as frequently discussed on this show as it probably should be. I mean, we tend to talk quite a lot about Argentina, but Venezuela is in a similar but different position, right? With a kind of degenerating country and high inflation and a lot of maybe, I don't know how much civil unrest there is there at the moment, but it's certainly not like a stable kind of situation, right?
No, it's never been. It's always been an unstable country. Actually, the situation in Argentina, they copied all the bad things we did. They copied it there. You know, they started in Venezuela, and the politicians were like, "We have to import this thing. We gotta fuck it up as much as we can." But they didn't quite manage to find the same degree of fucking it up.
Yes, and now they seem to be getting like back on the right track, you know. So maybe history can reverse. Well, Argentina learned some bad lessons from Venezuela, but now maybe Argentina can improve, and then Venezuela can learn some good lessons from Argentina. Are you optimistic about that?
About Venezuela? No.
No, okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. I've never been. Last time I was optimistic about the country was last elections when this Edmundo guy, he actually won legally, but they took it. They have all the power in the country. I was like, yeah, I was a fool for being optimistic about this stuff. I should have known better that they were gonna take it anyways. And
yes.
So that was like the last time I think I will ever be optimistic about the country ever again.
Yes, all your faith has been crushed. It's going to take a very compelling case of real change. And I mean, that's kind of a bit of a problem, right? That you see in cases, obviously in crypto and in geopolitics as well, the same thing happens. If people get into a bad spiral, if things are going poorly, then people don't believe they can change, which makes it worse. And then things just keep sliding downhill, right? The more cynical everyone gets, the harder it is for somebody to believably come along and say, hey guys, we can do better, but we're going to need to make some changes. And if people are already burnt out, then they just say, oh, everyone has said that before, right? So it just kind of gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And I would expect that's probably the same phenomenon that's happening there, right?
Yeah, that's exactly that. There was a moment where people lost all hope and nobody was protesting anymore, and people would simply wanted to keep on with their lives, no matter how bad the situation, because it's stupid to fight it.
Yeah, no, it's just terrible. And that's what I think about a lot, you know, in terms of the BCH community. That's how I see it a lot, because when I've talked about before on this show, when I started the show, BCH was at a very low point in some regards after it had been through 3 like civil wars and the splits, and even just the general, there wasn't all that much chatter because so many people had already left or had falling outs or got disillusioned or whatever. But then even the people who were there was still a lot of negativity and a lot of complaining and a lot of people who were actually addicted to that feeling of having something to complain about. Once you have a situation that's bad, not only is the situation bad, but some people, some personality types enjoy that. They actually thrive in that environment because they can play the victim, they can always blame someone else, and they don't have a proactive mindset. So that was what was kind of going on, and changing that took a huge amount of effort. Now things are actually very positive and upbeat, and everybody's building and innovating and all that stuff, but it took a lot of effort to wash a lot of that vibe out of the community, including a lot of the people who were sort of so-called, you know, big contributors. Of course, they weren't contributing, they were just dead weight, right? But they were a big part of the problem. And you can see that same thing happen in any group of people, whether any community. So like in a country, you'll need a full turnover of like all the most influential politicians or all the most prominent people in any kind of counterculture before it can credibly say, no, it's us, we're different, we're not like those guys, and we're actually optimistic and we're going to make a difference, right?
Yeah, I would say that's right. Actually, you see that's what's going on right now in Bitcoin, in BTC, my Bitcoin.
Yes.
If I can define it that way.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, that's actually why this conversation started, because I see these changes coming. I've been seeing it for a long time now, and I see it's accelerating.
Okay, yeah, expand on that. Tell me a bit more about that. So what would you say has prompted, like, give a before and after snapshot, and what's the bridge in the middle that you see causing this change?
Yeah, I think that the inflection point for all of this was the arrival of the creation of the Ordinals protocol, because in Bitcoin we had a culture of this thing is unchangeable and it will never change. We don't have to change it. And although we all say that it is anti-fragile, we all behave like it is the most fragile thing in the world, and changing it is gonna fucking destroy it, and there's not gonna be any more Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is not that fragile, and multiple forks have demonstrated it. Like you guys, for example, you guys went through the war and through the war that I did not live, which was the block size war. You went downhill for a long time, and now you're picking up again, and you still have some problems I see. Maybe I can comment that later. But none of that and none of your subsequent multiple forks that almost destroyed your community that was way smaller than ours at the moment killed nor your Bitcoin and neither the other Bitcoins. They are still working, not thriving, but working again. Still working. And I think that Bitcoin, BTC as well, is amazingly anti-fragile, as it has been described, and changing it, giving it some changes, it's not gonna kill the system.
Okay, does it depend on the changes though? Because I think part of the argument is you're right that there has been a big shift in the overall crypto conversation, and largely as a result of the Ordinals. So that was in around January 2023, if my memory serves correctly, right? So you said you were back involved in 2019. It was around that time. So 2019 to 2022, let's say, you think everything was very heavy on the ossifying and can we do anything and all of that. But that was also while the price was going up, right? So there was a lot of big conferences. Elon Musk got into Bitcoin a bit with Tesla. MicroStrategy is coming big on the scene, right? So things seem to be going well at that point. But then the Ordinals changed the game because the sort of laser-eyed maximalists who were controlling the narrative then just got upset by this introduction that they couldn't control. It wasn't... They complained about it, but they couldn't stop it, right? And that also proved the whole narrative a lie.
Yeah, exactly. It actually happens like what Andreas Antonopoulos said a long time ago, that Bitcoin and everything in Bitcoin is just punk rock. You just have to deal with it. If you don't like it, fuck you. That's it. And these people have been spending a lot of time and energy in trying to filter out this stuff. But the thing is that Bitcoin is made in such a way that you cannot filter anything. Everything that goes in just goes in. The only way to get it out is with RBF. I know RBF is something you guys don't like at all. I actually find positive things in RBF. And one of those is being able to cancel transactions. If you make a mistake, you can cancel that. But that's the only way to get anything out of Bitcoin.
Well, out of the mempool,
out of the mempool. That's the thing.
Because the filters guys like Bitcoin Mechanic and whoever else, their argument would be that there is filters and there always has been filters, in the sense that there's rules around standard and non-standard transactions. There's obviously the fee rate is itself kind of a bit of a filter, like you can't just free transactions are no longer accepted and so forth. So they would say there already are limits in terms of the op return limit, and there's different protections in place, especially around standard versus non-standard transactions. But even what is a non-standard transaction still has limits on it. So those are a kind of filter. It's really a question of where do you draw the line, as opposed to whether or not you can or can't filter things, right?
Yeah, exactly. The whole argumentation is that there's some things that should be filtered and some things that shouldn't. But the thing is that most of these data schemes, they can come to Bitcoin. You can describe that anyway. You guys in BCH have data that we had from before SegWit. You don't need SegWit, you don't need Taproot to describe data or data in the blockchain. these guys right now are experimenting with the most efficient way to inscribe data on the blockchain, and they don't really care if that's morally right or wrong. They are gonna do it because it's making them money, and for the people who are not making money with that, it's fun for them. And actually this has come with a really big positive side, that is it bring back the conversation of how do we scale Bitcoin again, how do we change it, because these people are gonna keep doing their stuff, so we need to do our stuff in another way that doesn't interfere with them, because they are interfering with us.
Yes.
So
yeah, I think it's quite
it's a consensus
ironic.
network. Everyone can participate at the same time, and all we can do is be more efficient at what we are doing. And if we find ways to be monetizing transactions more efficient, those guys are also gonna find ways to be more efficient.
Yeah, but that's kind of the argument, right? Is they would say, well, yes, it's always been possible to inscribe data in the blockchain. People give examples of like Luke Jr. put all his some of his Christian verses or whatever in there in either the op returns, or you can encode it into the public keys. Satoshi put a message in the Genesis block, so there's sort of this argument like, okay, it is possible to put data into the blockchain, but then for the filter side, they make a very valid point, which is, yes, but there's different classes of that, right? Just because you can do a small, sort of somewhat limited amount of data inscribing, which has been created for that purpose, because if somebody is going to do it, inevitably, well, let's just give them a place to do it. The Taproot inscriptions bug / option, I guess, is just it's opened a completely new field, which allows you to have like up to a 4 megabyte transaction. Before, you could not have one transaction that was 4 megabytes and put your wizard JPEG in there, right? So that part is accidental in the sense that the filters people didn't want it, and they don't feel like they ever agreed to that being in the protocol. So I don't think there's a dispute that you can or can't do data in the protocol. It's sort of a line drawing exercise, and I just think it's interesting that the people on the inscription side are just kind of like, well, we've got it and this is an accident, so nothing you can do about it, which is true because they haven't managed to do anything about it. And on the other side, you have the people who are like, well, we didn't agree to this. There's this whole, like you're talking about consensus, there's this whole debate about what is actually consensus. But you've consented to whatever is the code that is running right now on the network by joining the network, which somebody actually pointed out to, I think, Luke Jr. recently. And his brain melts down, like his cognitive dissonance just can't handle it, and he can never give any rational response to that because he's wrong, right?
Yeah, that was one of the funnest things I've ever seen in my life. It was Shinobi, the guy who's the technical editor of the Bitcoin magazine. The conversation went like, Luke told him that nobody in the network was okay with this, they did not consent, and Shinobi told him like, fuck you, Luke. Everyone consented the moment they downloaded software that accepts this data. Then Luke's mind exploded, and he was like, no, they are raping the chain. Man, how the fuck can you say they are raping the blockchain? It's like the most stupid thing I ever heard. Talking on the topic of the quantity of data, with the 4 megabytes of inscription data, we can have actually BitVM, which I think it's maybe a breakthrough in Bitcoin with its limitations. And if we have more things in Bitcoin, it can be even better. But if we start filtering out data just because it's too heavy, we're not gonna be able to have scaling solutions that use BitVM. or BitBMX
Yes.
because the proof, the size of the proof is almost a whole block.
Yes.
And if we can't use the whole size of the block, then why do we have it? Why
Yes.
did we use the weight just to not use it?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would say that the redenomination happened from the original 1 megabyte block size to this whole block weight. That was all just part of the scam in the block size war, right? Where there was this false narrative about, okay, we're kind of doing a little bit of scaling with SegWit and this accounting hack to allow somewhat of a change, forced in as a soft fork. So I think that was all just basically a hoax and a scam. But the BTC community now believes that it was such a brilliant change. And I guess even like the people who are in favor of changing things to remove this loophole in the inscriptions envelopes, they still, like Bitcoin Mechanic, he still says, okay, well, I kind of regret what happened with SegWit and Taproot. It's actually quite amazing that he says, I still support both of those things, even though I regret the outcome, that it didn't work. And he just has to come up with some sort of rationalization like, well, it was a good idea, but I didn't really understand it at the time, but we did it anyway, and now we're in this situation, which I don't like, but I'm still happy that we did it. And it's just the most convoluted way of trying to explain to himself how it is that he has a network that he thinks is not serving the Bitcoin vision that he wants it to serve, which in his mind is small blocks for peer-to-peer electronic cash payments. But now it's not even that. It's small blocks, which it wasn't. Originally it was big blocks, according to Satoshi. And then it's small blocks, and then now it's not even for peer-to-peer electronic cash payments. It's for data availability a la Ethereum, and maybe somehow we'll get the cash payments on layer 2, right? So are you happy to be betting all of the BTC basket, all of the odds basically, on the viability of these layer 2s via storing data in the blockchain? Is that what you think is not only the future, but also what you should kind of all in on? You're completely done with any on-chain scaling, or you think there's a part of that as well too?
Yeah, I actually think it's gonna be part and part. I think that in time, not right now because we're not politically ready to do that. We're gonna get bigger blocks, and I think that we will try with algorithmic blocks just to wipe up the conversation, which I think that's something you guys did really well and should have been from the start. So the things should have never happened, the whole war and fork and stuff. It was just a consequence of someone taking the wrong solution to a problem at the moment. Which
Yes.
was Halfini telling Satoshi to make the blocks 1 megabyte. Yeah, I understand both sides. Both why it's a good play to have bigger blocks and why it's a good play to have smaller blocks. But I think the better solution would have to have them be algorithmic. So
Yes.
there's no discussion at all, and all our efforts can be in how do we solve the problems of bigger blocks while we have them small. So when they arrive, they are not a problem.
Yes. So this is very, obviously this is very BCH style thinking, right? So the question I'm obviously going to ask you is, if you think the BTC community is going to eventually do algorithmic blocks, which I would say is several steps away, and you say, okay, it's not politically ready, by what date do you expect that to be in? And if you don't have a date, or if that date passes, at what point would you kind of change your mind and say, okay, maybe the BTC community is never going to be ready?
I can give you a date actually, because things are, becoming so politically complicated sometimes. Sometimes it looks like we're advancing, sometimes it looks like not, sometimes it looks like it's the laser eyes taking control of the narrative, and sometimes it looks like it's the builders taking control of the narrative. So I cannot give you a date because I would be lying if I had a date for that.
But you don't need to have a date
but-
that's accurate, is what what I'm saying, right? Is that it's not like I'm going to hold you specifically to that date. The point is, if you don't have a cutoff point at which you think, okay, this, like if you try, insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results, right?
Yeah.
So if
Yeah, of
things
course.
just go on forever, right?
Yeah, it could go on forever, but sorry. I guess we have a lot of people trying to scale anyways, despite of all its limitations, and maybe we find solutions before we ever need to make the blocks bigger, and maybe we don't have to. You know, like
You're not.
for example, right now. Lightning is not the best solution in the world, but when it works wonders. When it doesn't, it's a fucking piece of shit. It's the worst thing in the world when it doesn't, but when it works, it's amazing. But for example, just adding small upcodes, it could make it a world better. We could still have the same properties of Bitcoin outside of Bitcoin, which I think it's the proper definition of scaling right now in Bitcoin BTC.
Yes. Yeah, so that makes a good point, actually, which is that the algorithmic blocks, I mean, part of the reason I'm skeptical about the algorithmic blocks is because that wouldn't even be the first thing on the agenda. Like, the community has gone through trying to discuss, okay, are we going to do CTV? Are we going to try and do L-enhance, which is CTV plus a bunch of other stuff? Are we going to do OpCat? Are we going to do all of them? Like, not only is there people arguing to cut back on the protocol and actually close the window on the taproot inscriptions, at the same time you have people who are trying to make forward progress. So one way it's often said is it's like politics, right? You have conservatives and liberals, essentially. So you have the BTC community as a whole are essentially the Bitcoin conservatives, because the BCH community were, in a way, the Bitcoin progressives, right? And so now that there's this faction who are in the BTC side who are like the liberal conservatives that are trying to make changes, they're having a supremely hard time doing it because the momentum is already set on BTC is going to be the conservative chain that doesn't change, that doesn't fuck things up, because they think that's too risky, right? And there's been so much marketing, so much messaging to the world about that any change is seen as insanely risky. Whether or not the tech is risky, what's risky is disrupting that perception that we're stable and we're not going to screw things up, right?
Yeah, well, that also depends on who you talk to. If you talk to, for example, the Twitter community, things are not going to change ever, and we are going to be carnivorous Christians with a trad wife and 100 kids tomorrow night, and anyone who doesn't do that, it's going to burn in hell, and they are going to be in debt forever because they're using fiat. Yeah, that's a thing you can see on Twitter every day. It's completely ridiculous. It's a caricature of the people that like Bitcoin. Well, for example, Shinobi, the guy who made Luke melt, he has an article about this, that Bitcoin is just not libertarian. And when you talk to other people that are not, do not follow that standard of the retard Bitcoiner, there's no other definition for that. You have to be a retard to believe that. Most people are not in favor nor against of ossification or change. They just want the thing to be usable. That's it. So if change have to happen, they will happen. Most of them are just like, maybe we have to study it, but I'm not against it. There are some people who are completely against. But when you talk to builders, to developers, everyone knows that change is happening, and it's accelerating. It's going faster and faster and faster. Like 2 years ago, it was just a little part of the conversation, like maybe we have to do something. And right now, all of these layer twos are popping up, and all they want to not be pseudo layer twos, but they want to be actual layer twos, to have all the properties of Bitcoin, and they can have both a business model, at the same time be a censorship resistant as Bitcoin, and have all the properties that actually matter, that are a lot more than only the 21 million.
Yes.
And a lot of people know that with custodial Bitcoin, we are not gonna preserve any of the properties, especially the 21 million Bitcoin.
Yeah, so Emergent Reason says in the chat, and he's mirroring my own thoughts, which he says, BTC is accelerating, ? Or discontent is accelerating, ? Right? The idea is that, like you said, maybe the way that you are seeing more arrival or more building or more energy is more discussion, maybe more investment by VC firms, maybe more projects starting. So that's all a sign that the culture is shifting, and of course the culture then eventually determines the protocol upgrades, right? So that might be movement in a positive direction. But in my mind, there's also a big difference between chat and action, right? So there's a lot of chat. There can always be chat that, okay, we're going to change the protocol, we're going to add this, we're going to ship this upgrade. But actually shipping an upgrade onto BTC Layer 1 has defied anybody's ability to really define how to do it, let alone actually getting it done, let alone actually getting it done in the face of significant opposition. Right, so I feel like maybe the story that you're saying there, that the builders are getting more prominent and so forth, maybe, but not really, because what happens is those people try and build something, it doesn't work because the protocol doesn't support it, and if they wanted to actually make a difference, they need to ship a Bitcoin Core competitor, which will essentially just create a civil war instantly. I don't think there's really any sign that Bitcoin Core is opening up to the idea of adding opcat, adding lenhance, adding anything like that. And so, like we were discussing recently as well, I mean, Moonsettler is coming out, he's going to try and do an lenhance fork, right? Satoshi, bless him, he's giving it the college try, but he tried that. He was hype at the start of this year, 2024. We're going to be announced. We talked about it on the Christmas episode for 2023. He said we're going to get a CTV client. We're going to get it out there. Hasn't happened. Nearly a whole year has passed, and now he's starting up, okay, we're going to start an lenhance client, and who knows whether that appears or it doesn't. But the reality is it's not going to break the monopoly of Bitcoin Core, because as he himself will admit, all the money and all the funding and of course all the credibility is with that Bitcoin Core team. So providing a viable competitor, you basically have to do it the way BCH did, which is you have to split, and then you have to be going long enough that your technology also has credit that it can work. The upstarts within BTC, it's just not viable. And so as much as there might be more a culture, in quotation marks, of building, if there's no client and there's no protocol upgrades, it's all for nothing, right? Well, that's my opinion anyway. What do you think?
Well, that's actually a great point. But, I mean, I'm not a developer, so I am not that inside of how it actually all of this works. But I talk with a lot of developers, and there's a lot of people working on core. They are not the people merging code, but they are working on core, and most of them want to change. And the good thing that I've talked with all these people is that since what we're trying to achieve right now is a soft fork, if the building culture wants to have one client to activate the changes we want, we can just do it. And since it's a soft fork, Bitcoin Core can't reject it. It's not
well, that's
hard
not
fork
really
where you have actually people competing, but like one example is what Rindale and so the Taproot Wizards and Marathon did with Opcat. There's right now a upcut script on the chain block 7,000. I don't remember the number exactly, but the thing is like, yes, you can't have cat that's moral, that's blah 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 blah, and the thing just happens, and it seems it's executed like cat, and it worked, and they did it using Bitcoin Core.
Yes, I mean this is at the edge of my technical knowledge here. I know what you're talking about, so I don't want to misspeak on this topic and say something. But it wasn't exactly the same, right? It was like they found a way to maybe emulate it in and put it in the script of the inscription, or they got it to display somehow on mempool. It wasn't just like we've got cat and we can just use it and crack on, because otherwise that's what they'd be doing, and all advocacy for cat would have stopped. We would be in this future of, okay, all the building that was promised has started, but that hasn't happened. So it wasn't a good enough hack basically to actually deliver opcat as it would be if you added it into the protocol, right?
Yeah. It's not like they got a cat directly to a client, but what they did it the same way it's done in soft forks. Like you take things that
they put it on a knob. That's I remember. Yes.
No, not a knob. An OP success.
Okay.
I think it's the thing. So yeah, it's valid whether you like it or not, but it's cat and it's executed like cat. It was a concatenation inside the script. That's what happened, and everyone accepted, and that's how it works right now. Of course, it's a hack, but I think we are gonna see more of this stuff in the future.
Mm-hmm. So you're actually bullish on this idea, because however you slice it, then you essentially already have the community in a civil war, right? The point is this technical stuff is downstream of the cultural stuff, right? If everybody's on the same page with the culture, like as seen at the moment in BCH, then things just progress smoothly. Everyone debates, everyone gets to the bottom of what you're doing, and you just do it, and it just works, right? Like cash tokens, like ABLA, we've got the VM limit stuff coming up, right? That's just ticking along fine. Of course, it wasn't working fine when you had all the BSV guys who wanted to make gigablocks, and everyone was like, no, that's not what we're doing. Or the XCC guys who wanted to add a Coinbase tax and all in on Amori's, development skills, right? That's the culture, and that same contentious culture is now fostered in BTC, where, like you're talking about, you have those two different camps, and they say, something will, that which cannot continue will not, right? So eventually, if we just expand out into the future, there's got to be a split, right? One side or the other is going to get to the point where they're unhappy enough that they decide to take more drastic action, because as long as those two camps are coexisting, one camp either has to leave, they could go to a different chain, they could go to BCH, they could start their own chain, they could join up to Litecoin, I don't know, whatever they want to do, but one coin or the other has to leave, one side or the other has to leave, or they have to split, because they can't. It's like a household that is arguing amongst itself, right? Like an unhappy husband and wife that can't stay together forever. Like eventually they're going to split up. It's just a question of when and under what circumstances, right?
Yeah, actually about that, I expect the filter guys to split up. They are the most likely community to fork off in all of this. They are most discontent with everything because they think it's an attack on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is gonna die. The thing is that their leader right now is Luke, and Luke is the person who made Segwit into a soft fork in BTC, and right now he's the one saying the same narrative that you guys were saying a long time ago, that the Bitcoin Core is captured and compromised, and it's not the same thing that is bankers trying to capture it, but right now there is shitcoiners and sinners trying to capture Bitcoin, and they are the most likely people to fork off of all this problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So what do you think? He would launch a chain split, but then his argument is self-defeating, right? Because if he's the one to launch a chain split, then basically the status quo carries so much weight. We are Bitcoin. The easiest side that can say we are the real Bitcoin, we are the BTC chain, is just we didn't change anything. If you change things, obviously you're the shitcoiners trying to change things. Like, get out of here. So he's stuck, obviously, between a rock and a hard place, because it's the same thing we've talked about before with John Carvalho, with Shinobi, with everyone. It's all these guys get to a point where they're like, we want to change BTC, but previously we were the guys who said anyone changes BTC is evil. So fuck, right? Like, that's now the position that Luke has found himself in, right? And everybody is just stuck in this like gridlock. It's like a traffic jam, you know, where nobody can move because nobody else can move. And to get, you know, somebody would have to break the rules. Somebody has to make a move to break it up. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going on with Bitcoin Core, just shipping the same like small trivial patches and nothing really happening, even to the extent that people are trying to work around it with inscriptions, right?
Yeah, right. We have right now a problem of something that's called, if I recall correctly, stop energy. You know, that's it's when in open software everyone have the same stake over a technology, and no matter how small their opinion is, they can't stop the process.
Yes.
It looks like there's no way out of this, but for example, Miguel de Icaza, the guy who started GNOME, the Linux desktop, he has a great argument against this, and is just forget about the people who are trying to do the stop energy thing and just move forward, ignore them. And right now I think Moonsettler and Code with the Enhanced client are going, they are just moving, they are ignoring all this stop energy thing. Also Paul Shorts, I don't know how that's a pronunciation, the guy from the Drive Chains.
Yes.
Yeah, he's doing a great thing, that is the core on touch soft fork. I don't know how technically good or politically good idea it is, but I
terrible.
like the idea anyways. No, but I like the idea anyways. The idea is like
The intention. Just crack on.
Yeah, the intention behind the idea is actually great, because it's like it's just like an extension. If it doesn't work, you just uninstall it.
Well, that's the thing. You know, Paul is not getting anywhere.
In concept, it's a good idea. Paul is being stuck in the same place for, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. Yes. But he's still trying to make progress. I tried to talk to a guy about if he has ever tried to do drive chains without his own opcode, just get the few opcode that we know we can get, that is Covenant. We don't still know which Covenant, but everyone knows we want the Covenant, and get the drive chains that way.
Well, that's the problem. Like you say, okay, Paul, or maybe even Moonsettler, or these other guys, they have the right intention. They are trying. Trying is better than not trying, but succeeding is better than trying, right? And that's the difference. Like, some of the BTC guys, they want to ossify, they're not trying. Some of the BTC guys, they're trying, but they're not working. And BCH is actually making progress. Instead of trying to make progress, we're actually making progress. We're shipping upgrades. We're improving, the community momentum. We're growing the size of the community. And eventually, that's going to outstrip a stalled BTC unless something can break the deadlock. And the people who are trying have been trying for a long time, and they don't have any new ideas, really. If they did, we would see it, and we would see an upgrade happen, right? But we haven't. So actually, I want to just tie it into, we've got a slide here which Jet will put up in a second, that you and I actually got onto this chat because of this Twitter thread where you said, quote, if Carmen joining Taproot Wizard isn't the ultimate signal that Bitcoin culture is shifting completely and that the chain won't ossify, I don't know what is. End quote. And then I replied, quote, the ultimate signal would be an upgrade to mainnet, which did not cause a chain split and or retain the BTC ticker and branding, but made all the ossifiers mad, end quote. And then we had some discussion, Jet, if you switch the slide forward to the, was about the, one more, to the, what then, when that would actually happen, right? So you said that you think there'll be an upgrade by Q4 2025 or Q1 2026. So let's say March 31st. 2026, which we can talk about now, and then it's 18 months TM. We'll come back in 18 months and see if they've shipped an upgrade or not. And my contention was that probably you won't ship an upgrade in that time, but even if it did, like let's say somehow Cat got in or some other small change got in, it will kind of be too late, because in that time that means BCH will have shipped a 2025 upgrade, VM limits will have locked in whatever is in the 2026 upgrade, which will be coming just shortly after that in May of 26. And with the way the community is gaining momentum and the narrative is changing and the BCH is improving, I think there'll be a huge surge in BCH sort of by that time, or the things will just keep running away from BTC Core, and it's just going to be harder and harder to catch up. So a small upgrade, if one is even possible at all, which maybe it isn't, in another 18 months is going to be too late. And I even said I was being a little bit cheeky with this, but I said, okay, maybe BCH to BTC ratio sub 50 to 1. So we're at nearly 200 to 1 now, right? So I would say like a 4x improvement BCH to BTC. I'll be honest, that's a bit more speculative. I was trying to stir the pot a little bit with that one. But in general, get some thoughts on record so that we can look back on this in 18 months. In the case that you do ship an upgrade by Q1 2026, how will that have come about? And in the case that it doesn't, what went wrong?
Well, that's a good question. I actually have not thought about it, because I think it's gonna happen. But I've been really optimistic, so I have not thought about what if it doesn't. But thinking quickly about it, there's anyway a lot of development happening about stuff that don't need upgrades. But the only problem with most of this stuff is that they are not completely trustless. But for most people, not for me, they are trustless enough. Like, you only have to trust one transaction, which would be the pegging transactions in case of BitVM bridges, ARC right now. For example, ARC is the thing I like the most, but the only problem is without covenants, it has to be interactive, the same way Lightning is. You have to be online, but you don't have to be online all the time. It fixes a lot of the problems with Lightning. Right now also, yesterday I think it was the guys from I didn't remember the company. They released something called Spark that supposedly it looks like it has unilateral exit, but the only trust assumption right now is 1 of n at the moment of pegging in. They should they are supposed to delete keys, so they cannot collude with you. I asked them if an opcode would help with this, and they said yes, one opcode that help us have a CK proof verifier, which make the whole difference just to have this be completely trustless. Since everything that's going on right now wants to be trustless, and they all know that they just need one small change to be completely trustless. I think in the end we're gonna collude to make everything trustless, to have the one thing that helps everyone. It's not gonna be a silver bullet, but it's gonna allow for all of this stuff to work properly.
Yeah, okay, so that's a decent bull case, which is that you think that the incentives are growing to ship an upgrade, which would unlock all these different features, and obviously the more people you have working on those features and the more investment money that goes into it and the more community excitement there is about all these features, the more likely it is that bleeds over into let's actually ship a protocol upgrade. Of course, I'm still very skeptical. Like, I'll believe it when I see it, because you still have to get past the fact that not only is BTC completely hijacked at the Bitcoin core level, but you still are inevitably going to have large parts of the community and influential voices in the community as well. Even if it was only, let's say, 20% of the actual people, it doesn't matter if a few of those people have huge voices, because they can always create enough opinion that it's controversial, and then if it's controversial we can't do anything is the default learned helplessness of the BTC community, right? So yeah, I can't agree with you, but I can see the argument you're making that maybe things would be so there would be enough incentive accumulated that you would be able to get an upgrade over the line. But I just think, yeah, that's madness, especially with only 18 months of time. Like, you probably need to have something announced and have at least 12 months for the community to discuss, for everyone to go over, whether it's to hash it out, to get on the same page, blah, blah, blah. You need at least 12 months for that. So that would mean you would need to ship a client, which also needs code review. It needs people to agree. All this stuff that we do in the chip process, that's all going on all the time, right? But as far as I can tell, the BTC community basically hasn't started it. You might say, okay, OpCook, OpCat, Enhance have been there like cooking for a while, but it needs to be like, we've got the code, here it is, and that takes a few months to get organized, and then and you have to maintain it as well too. You have to be merging in the latest changes from Bitcoin Core at the same time. So you've got 6 months to ship that by like March of next year, and then 12 months for the upgrade to actually activate. I just can't see it happening. Okay, so similar on this topic then, and to my argument that things can always just be delayed, you had Michael Saylor was the big headline this week after coming out with a new interview where essentially the mask was off, and he just basically roasted the BTC community on all their most treasured values. Jet is going to play us the clip here. We're going to hear about 2 minutes from what was an hour-long interview, but this was the spiciest bit that got the most Twitter traction and the most pushback. Let's have a listen here.
If there is more Bitcoins held with these third-party custodians, what risk does that pose, having greater supply held by fewer large institutions? Does that increase the risk of seizure and confiscation like we've seen with gold? And is that not exactly what Bitcoiners don't want to happen?
No, I think it's the opposite. I think that when the Bitcoin is held by a bunch of crypto anarchists who aren't regulated entities, who don't acknowledge government or don't acknowledge taxes or don't acknowledge reporting requirements, that increases the risk of seizure. You have an OG crypto community that's very hardcore about it, but if you look at where all the money is, 99.9% of the money is actually in the traditional economy.
If you consider the Great Depression, I mean, people thought that their gold was safe in banks until the Executive Order of 1933. So we're not entirely safe. I mean, I know that's kind of a wild thing to suggest may happen again, but history does repeat itself. So people's Bitcoin wouldn't be entirely safe. It's
people say that, but mostly it's paranoid crypto anarchists that say that. Okay? Because it's a myth and a trope that goes on over and over again. But first of all, he didn't really seize the gold. People voluntarily turned in the gold. They didn't go and kick in everybody's door, arrest them, shoot them, and take their gold. That never happened. Is the United States on the Bitcoin standard?
Maybe we will be soon.
But the point really is we're not. right? It's totally not a reasonable comparison. You know, people have these inflammatory, you know, tropes or inflammatory memes that they use. And it's like, I say that because I want you to give me your money. Okay, like if you don't trust the bank, then you'll buy my hardware wallet. If you don't trust this government, you'll move to my country and you'll buy a passport from me. That's the kind of fear mongering to get you to give me your money, right? And I use it to sell you a gun, to sell you a hardware wallet, to sell you an account, to sell you a financial advisor, to sell you an insurance policy, to sell you a, you know, fill in the blank.
All right, so there we have it. Like, you can just see right down the line. So firstly, he says, oh, the OG crypto community, which he's trying to marginalize as a small segment of what it is. And it's true, as Bitcoin gets more mainstream, that people who are the most hardcore does minimize, but he's essentially highlighting how far the BTC community has fallen from its original mission and so forth, preserved in BCH, right? But he says, oh, it's paranoid crypto anarchists. He says, oh, it's all just these myths and tropes about the like seizing of the gold. It's not really a myth and a trope. Like, there was seizures of the gold. And when he says they didn't go around and kick in everyone's door, the point was they didn't have to, because a lot of people had already put their gold into the institutions and got back the paper claims. The government just went to the institutions and said, give us the gold, and they got it. They didn't need to go around and kick in everyone's individual doors. And the people who individually did hold the gold, either one, were able to disobey and just keep hold of their gold, good for them. That's self-custody, right? That's the whole point. Or they voluntarily gave it over, like you said, in which case they were probably morons. And maybe shouldn't have done that. But the point is that if most of the money is already in the institutions, the government doesn't need to kick in the doors. That's why you need to have all the end holders, not your keys, not your coins, right? That's the defense against that. And then he goes on further to say, well, he has been one of the biggest shills of the Bitcoin standard and how everybody's going to be living on this Bitcoin standard, and recommending Saifedean Ammousa's book, and it had such a huge impact, and I wrote the foreword and blah, blah, blah. And then here he is saying we're not on the Bitcoin standard, and not even really that it's credible that in the near future we might be. Complete about turn from all the shilling he's been doing that everyone's going to be on the Bitcoin standard. And even more than that, everyone who is sort of interested in building stuff for the Bitcoin standard, things like hardware wallets or whatever, that apparently that's all just a grift. This is all just this hype and scam about not your keys, not your coins, or about self-sovereignty and all that. It's really just a way to stoke fear and sell you the tools that you would need for that, like proper financial education, and in some cases, hardware or software wallets, whatever, right, to actually protect your Bitcoin in a self-sovereign way. So, of course, as you can imagine, this firstly, this is actually nothing new. I was completely unsurprised to see this clip. We've had clips on the show before of Saylor saying, we're not going to flip off the banks, we need to be regulated, the adults need to be in the room, etc., etc. But the BTC community, once again, in their information bubble, have just discovered that their treasured hero, who has been saying this kind of stuff for a long time, he finally said it in a way that they objected to, and they got very upset about this, and then all suddenly became defensive that they were very self-righteously the paranoid crypto anarchists. And of course, then Saylor later tweeted out this quote, "I support self-custody for those willing and able, the right to self-custody for all, and freedom to choose the form of custody and custodian for individuals and institutions globally. Bitcoin benefits from all forms of investment by all types of entities and should welcome everyone," end quote. So he made some sort of conciliatory statements on Twitter after the lashback, but this is not just an offhand comment he's making here. This is actually in line with everything that he has said previously. So whether or not he's actually serious about any of this has just muddled the waters even further. Pako, what do you make of this?
Well, it was not surprising to me when it happened. I've been saying for a long time that this guy is a spook. Well, you guys follow me on Twitter, and every time Michael says something, I am the first to comment that this is the most stupid thing I have ever heard. It reminds me a lot of the Mashinsky guy and all these people, but with a twist. This time twist is that he's not a crypto guy, but he's a Bitcoin maximalist guy with the laser eyes and all that stuff. But from the start, this guy has been a grifter that only wants to have more money. And I don't actually believe that he's working with the government to seize all Bitcoin. But I defining as a spook in the way that he's always been lying, that he's trying to portray himself like the quintessential Bitcoin maximalist, but he's just another guy who wants to have a company that makes money, and that money is gonna be on Bitcoin. He believes that he can have like 5% interest in Bitcoin, but we saw this with Celsius, FTX, BlockFi, and XO, all of these companies that could not make it possible. And I don't think there's amount of Bitcoin in the world that will make it possible, because Bitcoin is limited. And most of the Bitcoin is in the hands of these paranoid crypto anarchists, who are usually the kind of people who want to, follow the meme of moving to a citadel, have their shotgun every time someone rings the bell, just in case. That's where most of the Bitcoin is, and if he wants to do what he's saying he actually wants to do with Bitcoin, to be a bank and have the 5% annual interest, he's gonna have to go in a lot of debt. Bitcoin's volatility is not gonna help him, and his business is gonna go off the rails in some moment. Maybe it's gonna take longer than what happened before. Maybe instead of happening in 1 year, it's gonna take like 4, 5, maybe even 10, because Bitcoin is now a lot more liquid than it used to be. But I think ultimately it's what's gonna happen, and a lot of people are in for a very, very, very expensive lesson that a lot of people have already learned, and they've been telling them that it's gonna happen, and they don't gonna see it unless it happens again. And I think it's gonna happen again with Saylor. And about all of this, the thing that surprised me the most was that there are still people trying to defend it. I am not that surprised that some people are. Let me try to rephrase this because it's gonna sound like dissonance, but it's not. I am surprised that for some people it took this long to realize that this guy was doing this stuff and he doesn't even care about Bitcoin. All he cares is about the price of Bitcoin and making more money. He's a CEO. That's what his job is. That's what he does for a living. That's his life. These people live to make money, and that's all they care about. What I am surprised actually is that there are people that seemed to be logical about this stuff, and they went sentimental when all this happened, and they are still trying to say, no, he's playing for the chess. He's a genius. No, man, he's playing for the chess with you, and he's playing white, you are black, you are behind, and he knows what you're gonna do, and what you're gonna do is support his ideas, and you're gonna lose a lot of money, and we're gonna devolve again into the anti-crypto, anti-fiat, anti-everything cult, because his failure is gonna be phenomenal. That's what I think. What's what I think about all of this.
Yeah, well, that's the real problem is now the BTC community is in even more of a dilemma, let alone trying to actually ship an upgrade and stuff would be hard enough if you had everyone on the same page. But they've spent all this time building up this guy as the biggest promoter of BTC and the face of everything that's going on to, you know, large parts of the rest of the world. And then here he is now putting out the opposite of the message that they were trying to sell. But the thing is, even if they're upset and whinging about it later, he doesn't have to listen to them. He can just say whatever he wants. They've already made it big for him. They've already big upped him this whole time. And now, you know, be careful who your friends are, right? And it's coming back to bite. So there's people trying to like say, oh, well, we need to cancel or get rid of Michael Saylor or call him out. Well, it's like his voice is bigger than yours, and you were the ones who gave him all the credibility in the first place. So nothing really you can do to change your track now. Like it's already a bit too late in many regards. So this is just another reason why I can see there's just this perpetual infighting and problems in the BTC community. You're never going to get any productive forward change going on because this is what's taking up everyone's mind share. This is what everyone is thinking about all the time. They're not thinking about how we're going to do a better upgrade. They're thinking about what's the latest Twitter cancellation that we need to do that we got ourselves in for, right? It's ridiculous, basically.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but the thing is that that's Twitter. That's not an accurate representation of reality. You know, in Twitter, everyone is shouting, and everyone is trying to cancel, everyone is trying to be funny. I'm trying to be funny all the time. I can't do it all the time. But, you know, that's not the reality of what's actually going on. Like I see there's a few people who are still trying to defend it, and I am not surprised, but I think more pushback against his shift. If I explain myself correctly, more pushback against what he did. I don't think that this is gonna stop the train of upgrades. Maybe he can still do the things like trying to not allow some developers to get some money, but developers have been circumventing this stuff for a long time. And a lot of developers are simply shipping stuff and they don't care what's happening. Like, for example, look at the ARC guys. They didn't get all the financing they need, and they didn't get the upcodes they need. They still shipped. Floppy, I think you follow him, the Indian guy, the floppy disk guy. He's been working on OctoJoin and JoinServer for a long time, and to make it work as exactly as he wants, he needs one upcode, which is CTV, and he doesn't have it, but he's still shipping it, and he did it without any money, and a lot of people are doing this stuff. The thing is that they are not promoting it constantly. You know, all we know is when the HRF gives their grants, when Saylor says something retarded like this, when Seyfedin says something even more retarded because he's a fucking retard, when Giacomo Succo starts a fight because he's another retard, and all this stuff happens. That's what most people see, but that's not the whole picture. No, there's a lot more behind the stuff. Yes, a lot of people get distracted in this, and they think that's the whole thing, but that's not the whole story.
Yeah, it's true. Like I said, that Twitter chat is chat, right? So Twitter, there's just a lot of chat. So I agree with you in that sense that that's definitely not it. And underneath the surface of the water, you know, the bottom of the iceberg is people just working away, shipping software products and so forth. But I also think you're sort of incorrect to say that there's just always fighting and arguing. Like the BCH community fairly rarely in the last 2 years has had a lot of fighting and argument. Even when there was the big CoinFlex meltdown, everyone was pretty much just on the same page. Like, Mark Lamb, you're a scammer. Like, give us back the money, right? And then there's been another couple of minor incidents we've covered on this show with the Reddit mod drama. You know, there was a little bit of that. But by and large, people are not spending every day. That's like constant in the BTC community. Maybe you can say maybe it's just bigger, so there's more people, more divided opinions. But the way I see it is, it doesn't really matter how big or small your community is. Just everybody has lost the central mission of P2P electronic cash, and because everybody doesn't know what they're actually trying to do, there was, okay, we're going to be digital gold, but now even Michael Saylor is saying, well, there wasn't gold seizures, it doesn't really matter if it's not really like gold that you self-custody and is outside the nation state, you know, that's all just paranoid crypto anarchists, right? So now maybe even the whole digital gold thing is going to be transitioned out, and it'll just be, this is institutional money used by a couple of select customers, which is kind of already what happened. There's already huge amounts of the BTC either in Michael Saylor's hands or in the exchanges. Basically, the vast majority of BTC users, quote unquote, don't hold their own keys, right? It's just not even feasible with the limits on the block space, even less with inscriptions and op return runes taking up all of the block space, right? So I think, yeah, just the perpetual war, like, it's the issue is never the issue, you know, there's always a trending thing that is upsetting some segment of the BTC community, but at the end of the day, like you say, stuff is getting shipped, but it's all getting shipped with workarounds. It's all people trying to find a way past this impenetrable wall of, we can't improve the protocol, and just kind of running into that wall over and over and over and over and over again. So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about upgrades. I've got a slide here for the VM limits. Oh yeah, jump in, yeah, chat.
Do you guys think that Saylor's going to pivot to like a pro proof of stake position? Because in my mind, it's like he wants interest, like yield. He wants entities to have, or to be the largest custodian of, and like those two things you get with proof of stake. So what is the thing that's holding him on to Bitcoin? Has he talked about proof of stake before?
I don't know that he's, well, I think he's talked about it in the vague sense that he loves, you know, his word salad about Bitcoin is encrypted energy and you have the miners and blah, blah, blah. Like, they're good talking points that he likes to go back to. Of course, we've seen here that he's now just gone from, oh, nobody ever, you know, all the gold was seized and stuff too. Nobody ever seized the gold, so maybe he can do the same pivot from, oh, well, Bitcoin is encrypted energy with proof of work to, oh, guess what? You know, I spent a few years hating on ETH, but I realized actually they were the giga brains because they were getting paid yield, and how good is yield, guys? So I think it's unlikely, but I can't rule it out, because once you've already thrown your credibility out the window by making just such a ridiculous 180 on one subject, obviously you can just rehash that, rationalizing to yourself to do it on another, you know, similar and related subject. So I think it's not such a bad option to flag.
Yeah, it's the same. It's not unfeasible, but is also not likely. I think he's gonna try to keep control of the narrative for a long time, because something that's real and it's not exclusive to the BTC community is that people like to follow people of influence and power, and Saylor seems like a guy with influence and power just because he has a lot of money. I see that the same thing happened in Bitcoin with Roger Ver, the guy from BCH. There was a lot of people who called him the Bitcoin Jesus, just because he had, I don't know, like 1 million Bitcoin or something like that.
Hang on a second. Let's just, we got to just be clear about this. That wasn't, Roger did get the name Bitcoin Jesus, and he did have a lot of money, but he didn't get the name Bitcoin Jesus because he had a lot of money. Although you could say maybe subconsciously he did. Because he got it from his advocacy.
He was an angel investor in Bitcoin, and he was a real advocate.
Yes.
But a lot of people a lot of people I've seen, I read some of the forums, and a lot of people were like, well, yeah, this guy has a lot, and he became like a billionaire because of Bitcoin, so he's not wrong, and he's really the Bitcoin Jesus because he's here to save us all because he has a lot. And it's the same thing with Saylor right now. But yeah, the thing is that Ver at least he cared about the Bitcoin mission, but then he became martyr for you guys when the block size happened, and the two sides simply, the people who left the block size war from our side see him like a traitor, and you guys see him like a savior, and you guys see, I think it's Adam back like a traitor, and some people still see him like a savior, but not everyone see him like a savior anymore. He's just like this guy who talked to Satoshi and has maybe some influence, but nobody cares about his opinions anymore. He's just a guy with a lot of Bitcoin, does trading sometimes, and he's constantly speaking about the Godzilla got candle, and he has liquid that nobody uses liquid. He's just like some guy over there who somehow has a lot.
Yes.
But I think that people are making the same mistake with Michael, which is seems Michael Saylor like what's the
Like larger than life,
the
right?
Bitcoin, but they call him the Bitcoin Giga Chat.
Yes, it's like Bitcoin Jesus. He's got his own title.
That's his title, and people started because he has a lot. He went through a lot of debt to get a lot of Bitcoin, but I think we should actually be looking at people like, if we're gonna see someone with a lot of influence and power, it's gonna be Bukele, because that's the guy who actually legalized Bitcoin somewhere. It's like the only problem was with, you have to make all the prices be in Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, you can have it, you can pay in Bitcoin, it can be on chain, on Lightning, and if anything else comes or Bitcoin on chain gets a lot better, you can use whatever you want as long as it's Bitcoin of the unit of account and it's actual Bitcoin. You can use it legally. I think that's the thing we should be looking at, instead of Saylor saying that he owns, I don't know, like 1% of the supply and he wants to own more, because people they devolved into this cult of only buy, never sell, which is stupid. If you are not gonna use Bitcoin, why do you buy Bitcoin at all? Just having it.
Well, that's a real good question.
Makes no sense. I know you guys say that in Bitcoin we don't use it. The thing is that we don't use it on chain. We use it on Lightning. I use Lightning a lot. I use it not every day, but almost 3 or 4 times a week for stuff that they actually want to see. And for micropayments on Nostr, if I ever go to Nostr, I use it a lot. I sap a lot. Lightning is amazing for that. But yeah, I think that not using Bitcoin is stupid. Only if you can save in Bitcoin, and most of the thing I do is I save in Bitcoin, but I use it a lot as well. But I save a lot more than what I use. But that's how I do.
Do you save on chain?
Stuff. Yeah, I save on chain.
Do you get sick of paying fees, or I guess if you just send off a transaction and you just think, well, if, as long as it confirms in the next 2 weeks before it drops out of the mempool, that's fine. I guess you're not sitting there waiting for your, saving transaction to finish. But do you get fucking sick of paying like $5 a transaction to do it?
Well, the thing is that I actually never paid something like that. Maybe only once, because I was still learning about Lightning, and I had a bad peer. We had a forced close. It was like a lot of things happens that made it really expensive for me, because I had a forced close because it was a bad peer, was on tour. We had like 7 HTLC stock. It was a shit show. It was all the things you guys say that don't work about Lightning happened to me that day on that specific channel. But that's the only time I had to pay like a lot. Right now, fees are 4 Satoshis per byte, and I don't pay more than 10, maybe 20 if I need it at the moment. That's the only time I paid, and I was like 2 or 3 times on top of what was the priority
rate.
block. Yeah, it was like last year that we had to send some money to Argentina. I was like, I want this to go through no matter what. If there's a spike or it's one of these blocks that takes like 2 hours, so I'm just gonna make sure as much as I can. But I don't usually pay that much. Thing is that when you have something like this, you get really used to it, and you know how to manage. Like I never pay minimum, but I also don't pay a lot. Most I pay is like $2 to move. I don't know, like 1,000 or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't pay that much.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I can see.
But I know it can get real expensive.
Yes, and like it would be when you most needed it would be when it would get expensive. I'm just saying because if you use let's say like you said 3-4 times a week, maybe that's only Lightning Network stuff. But if you're using on chain 3 times a week and that's $2 a pop, that's $6 a week. $300 a year, like over time, that's just adding up. Like this is going to be a lot of money for a lot of people, supposedly in this world where El Salvadorians are going to, live on Bitcoin. Like they don't. That's like their yearly salary or whatever,
Yeah. I understand it. That's why for example, I've been bullish on ARC as a complement to Lightning for a long time, because it mitigates a lot of the on-chain friction that BTC has right now, and it still keeps the properties of Bitcoin as on-chain, but without the blocks and all the problems that it carries.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay, I want to get on to talking about these upgrades. So the BCH community have been, carrying on with our yearly upgrade schedule with the VM limits upgrade. That's going to lock in, I would say, essentially for sure. I don't see anybody has made any negative statements or any disputing about VM limits, which is of course how the process is supposed to work. By the time it gets down to the pointy end, basically everyone should be on the same page. The Bitcoin Cash podcast, I've published a blog post and a Twitter post saying that I'm in support of it, including the big in stuff. And actually, interestingly, this week we had Bitcoin.com themselves also put out a blog post and a tweet saying that they were approving the 2 chips, which I took as a huge sign of encouragement, because they, while they've been criticized for, okay, these are the guys, the BCH shills, that's not really the reality. There was certainly a period there, 2017 to 2018 or 2019, where they were very heavily into BCH, but the last few years they've been less involved. And now it seems like Corbin's been on this show, maybe some of the guys there follow the show, or they're engaging with the community in other ways, and it seems like they're getting more excited about being proactively involved in it, and having stakeholders come in and want to contribute and be part of the process is hugely bullish for the success of the upgrade and also of the community in general, so I've been super impressed about that. I don't know if you want to have any thoughts on that. Actually, Jet might be a good thing for you to weigh in on briefly, and then also just the idea that people float in the BTC community. For you, Paco, you can tell me whether or not you like this upgrade, but also this idea that BCH might be the test net, right? That's what people have been coming up with, this explanation like, oh, well, if they can do it on BCH, maybe hopefully will help us be able to make a case, like with OpCat, that we can change the limits, we can do the great script restoration or whatever on BTC. But I actually am really curious to hear if Jet has any thoughts about this Bitcoin.com approval being of any significance.
Yeah, it's nice that, because they, for the most part, have abstained from the last couple of years of upgrades, right? Like there hasn't been any comments on it really. Like maybe a couple, like an article would go out the day of the upgrade or something and be like, Bitcoin Cash successfully upgraded again, and write about it then. But yeah, it's nice to see them participating in the chip process. And I think that's a massive signal for everyone else involved in the chip process and the culture that we've created so far. I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, it's really great to see, because these things have inertia and momentum, like I was saying before, when things are going bad, they just tend to get worse. And then when things are going good, it takes a long time. Like this has just been what the chip process now will be, what its 5th year. I guess it was was the 2020 upgrade done with that, and Amaury didn't like it, and so he split. But whether or not it wasn't 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and now the 2025, like even if it takes 4 or 5 years to be convincing and credible to people who are paying fairly good attention to as well, it just goes to show that it takes a long time for doing the right thing to really pay off in the public mind, as you get people who are less and less involved in the nitty-gritty day-to-day. 5 years feels like a long time when you're there every single day, but when you're doing something else in your life and you only check in once a year or once every couple of years on like the main key points, then 5 years is nothing, right? Pako, what do you think about this? Are you in favor? Are you going to put out a support message in favor of VM limits, and how do you feel about this upgrade?
Well, I actually have no opinion on that, because that's way beyond my level of understanding of the things in Bitcoin. That's something more for developers. But the thing I can say is that you guys found a path to progress, and you have been on that path for a time now, and it's apparent. You can see it from outside right now. It's not like Bitcoin Cash doesn't seem anymore like just Bitcoin with bigger blocks, but that you guys are actually building. But the thing is that exactly what your mission is, and your mission is to try to replace BTC and then replace its mission. And our mission is right now just to be Bitcoin. There's no leadership in Bitcoin right now, and Bitcoin Cash hasn't. But I think, I think you guys have done a lot of progress in that regard that we have not been able to achieve.
Yes. What do you think about this idea of being a testnet? Do you think BCH ships this upgrade? This is similar to the Great Script Restoration, proposal that Rusty Russell, Reed and Co. Some of these guys are working on. Do you put any stock in the fact that if BCH, or when BCH essentially adds this, that it will then be easier for BTC people to say, okay, look, we can do this upgrade, it would be roughly equivalent, right?
Yeah, well, actually think I've talked to you guys about this. Like, I am of the idea, as many other people who are in the technical part of Bitcoin, that we're gonna adopt some of the technologies you guys have. And not everything, but I think you have a lot of good ideas that we should incorporate, and maybe we will get them. Look, for example, in the good ideas, I will talk about the ABLA thing. Maybe we won't get it in the same way, but we should get algorithmic blocks. So just to stop that conversation right away, just kill that snake from the head. That's it. But in the side of the bad ideas, in my opinion, is, for example, the cash token thing. I think it bloats the UTXO set a little. I know you have smaller scripts, so it doesn't as much. But I, for example, don't want anything else that's not Bitcoin to be natively on the UTXO set. But I like the thing you guys have. That it's like a native conjoin that also the guys from Litecoin have is the extension block. You have something else that it looks a little like that, but it's not extension block, but it has the same level of privacy, but with a different trust assumption. I'm not so much informed on that, but for example, in that, I think the best option is what Monero has, that is the ring signatures. That everything is obfuscated, but at the same time, it's auditable, just not as easily auditable as it is in Bitcoin.
Yeah, interesting. Look, so for people who don't know, you were talking about Cash Fusion there, which is not,
that's the name, Cash Fusion.
Yeah, Cash Fusion. Yeah, we've talked about that before on the show. Now, one of the things you said there was that you think the sort of native tokens, a la cash tokens, is a bad idea. This is an interesting contrast with how you were sort of backing the Taproot inscriptions stuff earlier and saying, oh, it's really good that there's innovation and people were trying to make BRC20 tokens on that, and they've since now moved over to runes, which are just op return embedded tokens after a fashion more similar to SLP that BCH had before. So one way or another, BTC is getting its own equivalence, sort of. It's not going to get an equivalent to cash tokens unless another flaw is discovered, or if the community ships an upgrade, which I would say is very, very unlikely. But they've got as far as the SLP tokens. What do you make of that element then? So it just... pro or anti-token, like, to me it should be one way or the other, but maybe there's a middle ground that you're in favor of.
Yeah, I think we already have, I think it's runes and VRC20 tokens.
Yes.
But they are pegged to a data on chain. But the thing is that this same set of data can be used for other more useful stuff. And I personally I don't see a use case for tokens on Bitcoin unless that same set of things that can be used for tokens can be used for other stuff that scale Bitcoin. You know, that's the thing with ordinals and this kind of stuff, because yes, we have, for example, ordinals that are bloat, but we can have BitVM, BitVMX, we can have proof of the things happening in ARC, we can have proof of the things happening in Spark, that can help us have better lightning channels and a lot of more stuff. A token itself in the UTXO set, I don't see it helping in the way this thing could help. You know, like every good thing also comes with a negative. And for me personally, I think this negative thing that happened with SegWit also carries a lot of positive things for our limitations.
Okay, interesting. Fair enough. The question now that will be on the minds of the BCH community, I think, is one benefit of the chip process is, as the VM limits is basically about to lock in, is that then obviously we'll start seeing some work on ChipNet, and there will still be applications and stuff coming out from it, but the conversation now needs to at least start a bit more seriously about what would be on the 2026 upgrade paths. So I've got 3 ideas here that I've seen have been floated around a bit that I'm just going to put into the public consciousness. We've got UTXO commitments, which we've already been discussing at Bliss this year. Probably there'll be ongoing work on them. At this stage, I don't feel like that's a critical thing to ship in 2026, but I'm glad that it's in the works, because we're going to need it eventually. It's something I definitely want. There's bounded loops, which has come up a bit more from Jason Dreisner, talking about how he sort of would like that, and that would be maybe the last missing piece that BCH needs to be, programmatically equivalent to Ethereum. But he has also kind of said, well, maybe I might take a bit of a backseat on that, so it might be up to somebody else to be doing the legwork to get that over the line. And there's also still community discussion about sub-Satoshis, about maybe subdividing Satoshis another 3 orders of magnitude. I guess it would be maybe 2, 3, 4 orders of magnitude. I think it might be 3 in the end, to set us up for when we need to lower fees past the point that they already are at, but also obviously as BCH grows to global reserve currency and you have people dealing in smaller and smaller amounts of Satoshis all the time, that one's a bit of a tricky one because there's no immediate payoff to it, but on the other hand, the later that you leave it, the more, the harder it is to just change cleanly. I don't know, Jet, do you have any thoughts on any of this? What do you think about changing the discussion, how 2026 upgrades? Is it too early to talk about that, or should we be getting a bit of chat going?
I don't think it's ever too early. So yeah, let's get the chat. I would like to see a loose roadmap from each node team where it's like, this is kind of what we want to do, and then the chip process kind of fills in the gaps over time.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
I don't know enough at the protocol level to be like, I'm in favor of this thing, or I'd like to see this happen. The thing I think I'm most excited for is the zero confirmation escrow stuff. And that comes with the VM limit upgrade, right? Or not, it doesn't come with, but this is something that we can do. Yeah. So for next year, I don't know.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy with
BCH. All right. It's going all right. Pako, what do you think? Would you be interested in any of these ideas on BTC eventually? UTXO commitments, sub-Satoshis, any thoughts on that? BTC already has a far higher price than BCH. If anybody needs sub-Satoshis, it's you guys, not us,
Yeah, sub-Satoshis seem like a logical step. Something that we should for sure have to adopt at some moment, because if the price is still going up, it's not just gonna be impossible to pay, but there's gonna come a moment where even new blocks are not gonna add anything new to the supply, because they're gonna be less than what can be spent.
True, yes.
Yeah, so maybe adding sub-Satoshis could, I'm not really sure, but maybe it can make things be a little cheaper because of how this data is structured. Maybe, I don't know. I would have to investigate. But maybe we would need them, and especially because if we are going to move to layer 2s, where we have them, we cannot be rounding all the time. We are gonna need to have them natively on Bitcoin as well.
It's kind of interesting. I'd never thought of before, but yeah. I wonder if someone's figured out the year where miners won't be able to move their Coinbase reward anymore.
546. Well, you wouldn't be able to move it individually. You would have to sweep it up in a transaction.
I'm not talking about dust limits, but just fees to move.
All right.
The dust limits
if it costs 30 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's probably not for a while, right?
Yeah, I don't think that for a while it's gonna happen. I think that we're gonna reach an equilibrium in some moment. It's not gonna be something crazy like 1,000,000 Satoshis per byte or 1,000, but maybe 100. And if the price is aligned with that, it's gonna be really expensive for a lot of people. And maybe miners won't be able to move them. I don't know. I don't think it's something to worry about right now, personally.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we've got the BCH conferences. So the Bitcoin Cash Argentina guys had their conference. It all went off really well. Big shout out to them for that. There's videos and stuff of the talks is coming. There's been some that Paul, actually, if you can go on his channel, RSPL 38 29 or something like that, and you can find his videos. He's done some videos of them, but they're going to be producing more videos that they actually have from the conference organizers themselves, which it might hopefully include some like translations and stuff like that. There were some talks that were in a mix of English and Spanish and so forth, so I think they'll be coming out with some really good stuff there. I've heard that's in the works. You've got in November, the Bitcoin Cash Nigeria team are running a BCH festival coming up this year, and then also at Bitcoin Cash Argentina at the end, it was announced that there's going to be another Bitcoin Cash City conference in Townsville, Australia from August 28th to 30th, 2025 with the theme of legal tender. So the number of BCH festivals, meetups, conferences, physical large events does seem to be rapidly growing, which I take to be a massive indication of the growth of the scene, and probably also is an outcome from the price not constantly crashing. So people do actually have spare money both to host and attend these meetups. Of course, doing things in person, face to face, always tends to get results a bit faster than collaborating remotely. That's just the way humans are wired. What do you make of this, Pako? Are you a big fan of Bitcoin conferences? Have you been to any of the big BTC ones and give us some insider knowledge, or do you just tend to stick online?
So far, I've been only the one that's in my city. It's not that big. I was with Bitbox, the company I work for. We made, the Bitbox O2 is a hardware wallet. It only supports Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Cardano on another wallet. I don't remember the name right now, and we have a Bitcoin only version. But Bitcoin conferences are, so far they've been good. There have been 2 editions of the one in my city, and I have liked them so far. It's not as weird as Twitter is. Actually, most of the people are joking a lot of how Bitcoiners are online, and then when you meet them in person, most of them are actually civilized people with a rational brain. I think maybe that happens to you guys as well. Maybe you have some crazy people that you say, man, I don't understand how this person lives, and then you meet them in person and they are actually really rational people. It happens. Yeah, it happens a lot. I remember that happening on Linux, yes. when I was younger, when I was starting to use Linux when I was a kid. I remember that in the open source community there were a lot of people that were like this version of a crazy communist who thought that only sure things are the future and the way to go in life, and then you meet them in person and they are actually rational people. Most people joke about that people being too loud.
Yes, it's just chat. People post a lot of stuff online that when you have to look someone in the eye and defend that position, it's a lot harder to do, and so then they sort of write off. Like I try and tweet, with that in mind, right? I certainly don't have the lowest, I'm sometimes a bit inflammatory in Twitter, but as a combination of the fact that I'm aware of this and also that I'm a fairly blunt person, I truly believe that basically everything I've ever posted on Twitter, I would just say to that person straight up to their face if I could see them in real life. And I don't think that's true of a lot of people. They have posts either with opinions that they wouldn't hold online, or that they wouldn't sort of have the guts to say directly to somebody who was looking at them, like, whatever insults that they were saying, or whatever attempts to be like dismissive or something like that that just would fall flat if they had to pull it off for real. But yeah, you're right. The internet is the internet, right? People are gonna people, and in reality, most people are actually pretty good and reasonable. I remember actually Peter McCormack telling a story one time about how he was at a he was at some kind of conference, and some like Bitcoin guy came up to him and was like getting in his face aggro about something, and he said he was completely caught off guard by it, because he was like, mate, do you want to have a beer? Like, what's the big grief here? And I don't know what the specifics of that guy's problem was, but it was just funny that Peter McCormack, of all people, who is definitely out there on Twitter, like, you know, being a bit aggressive at times, would be surprised that someone might have had a problem, you know, that he'd insulted online or something, when they actually got a chance to meet him. So yeah, I mean, there you go. Anyway, just something for everyone who's posting online to reflect on. Okay, we go to a couple of bits of other news this week. Moria Money, the shadow wizards at Cauldron, have been working away, and they've announced the sort of whitelist and put up some more information about their upcoming stable coin on BCH, which is going to be, you know, really important to the ecosystem, the DeFi growing potentially. So I'm looking forward to that. I've got this guy, I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's Thierry Baudet, who's a Dutch politician, I believe, was recommending hijacking Bitcoin in, I don't know, in some sort of Dutch political, I don't know whether it was the parliament or what. We've got a video of it here, Jet, if you can pull it up, that is really quite incredible, of him advocating for Roger Vere's book that he even holds up at the right at the end. So let's have a listen to this. It's quite amazing.
Famous crypto pioneer. At this moment, he has been stuck in Spain for 169 days. He is being charged by the United States on extremely dubious grounds. Tax issues that date back more than 10 years, vague allegations. Somewhat similar to the way John McAfee, also in Spain, a crypto pioneer, was arrested at the request of American law enforcement agencies, also based on vague tax issues. Or with the way Ross Ulbricht was absurdly sentenced to life in prison. Or think of Julian Assange, who ultimately received a pardon but was imprisoned for years due to obscure American extradition requests based on more than 100-year-old legislation. The power of the empire is undoubtedly felt in Europe. But the threat of political persecution is real and should not be tolerated by Europe. We need a significantly critical attitude towards these kinds of issues. It is absurd to tackle tax issues with such severe criminal measures, and it reeks in every possible way of political persecution. It is even more absurd that European countries such as Spain jump through the hoops set by American prosecutors without having seen serious evidence and without any serious conviction from a judge or commissioner. If the European Council should do anything in the coming days, it is to stand up for the rights and freedoms of people on our continent, independent of American legal whims. In the second round, I will submit a motion requesting the Prime Minister to discuss the situation of Roger Ver at the European Council and to urge Spain to provide protection for this man who is in no way a criminal, who is not a U.S. citizen, and who would gladly pay any potential fine and not to extradite him to the United States. And I can wholeheartedly recommend his book, Hijacking Bitcoin, for those who want to delve deeper into his work. Thank you.
It's just absolutely incredible. Again, I'm not sure the specifics of whether this was some European Commission or the Dutch Parliament or what exactly is going on here. It's not even really clear how many people he's speaking to. There was a quick shot of the audience, but there was like one guy sitting there and a few empty chairs. So who knows what sort of session this was, but it really just goes to show how big Bitcoin as a story is these days. You know, like nobody is standing up talking about the block size war book by Jonathan Beer in Parliament anywhere, right? It's just this whole case of Roger and the hijacking of Bitcoin and stuff has been such a huge part of the general global conversation in 2024 relative to anything else related to the whole origins of Bitcoin and all that has been previously. It's just the word is getting out there and people are beginning to understand this story is too important not to. And with Julian Assange and Trump has talked about pardoning Ross Ulbricht, right? The community in New Hampshire and other places have been doing massive work to get that on the political agenda, right? It really is just a case of, once again, just the consistency of the Bitcoin community, and in this case, the Bitcoin Cash community, just sticking on those same message over and over and over again, that these things are getting traction in a way that would have been incredible to think about 5 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Pako?
Well, the only thing I have to say about this is that I support that they should be discussing the thing with Roger, because although I am not on your side of the discussion and I'm not 100% supportive of everything Roger has done. I think he did nothing wrong here, and he should be his case should be looked at. There's no real reason to imprison him. No, he's
Absolutely.
not a U.S. citizen anymore. He paid all his taxes. He's been basically off the United States for how long? 10 years or something like that? Maybe more?
Over 10 years, yeah.
Maybe more. It's completely unjust. It's not okay what they are trying to do to him. And there's no ground for any of that. Even if I don't see it as the good guy, or in this case, nor as the bad guy, I don't really have a strong opinion on Roger. I think they should have not done this to him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and one other thing, piece of news: Kraken are launching their own competitor, Inc. chain, which is essentially their version of like Coinbase's base chain. So in the past, everybody just started a crypto exchange and then they all sort of blew up and rugged mostly over the years. And now we've got to the point where the exchanges that have survived are all launching their own chain. So much for the network effect of cryptocurrencies. It just goes to show that the people who have the most clout, like the exchanges that are regularly doing a lot of transactions, they can essentially spin up their own ecosystem to profit more off that, because the actual offerings of the on-chain coins that are available, whether that be BTC or BCH or Ethereum or, I don't know, Cardano or whatever, anything. You have Binance Chain, Coinbase has Base, Kraken is launching one too now. They just have enough clout that they are ecosystems in and of themselves, right? Which is, in one sense, quite damning of cryptocurrency, the way that it's failed to build a cohesive network effect, which would be so overwhelming that launching your own thing would be pointless. But at the same time, it just goes to show how influential the exchanges are, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's actually what surprised me the most about this is that exchanges now are trying to have their own layer 2 on Ethereum. Is Inc. one of those layer 2s as well?
I'm not sure. I believe it's its own chain. I don't think it's an L2 thing.
Yeah, I think that the one that started all of this was maybe Crypto.com with their what was the name? It was something about time. Chronos, with their Chronos chain. Yeah, they started that in 2021 or 22, I think. But yeah, I thought that was an idea that was not gonna go too far. It was gonna stay there because there's no need for a blockchain in those cases. It's interesting that they are doing this stuff, especially Kraken. Kraken has been like the most serious guys in this business usually. As far as I've seen, I don't know how bad they were before. But yeah, I find it surprising, and it's pretty interesting that they are doing this stuff right now.
So we'll wait and see what comes of that. But the world is constantly diversifying in terms of certainly how many competing crypto products there are, which I guess in one sense is a sign that we're winning, and in another sense is just like, well, are we ever going to take over if everything's just constantly fragmenting into smaller and smaller little ecosystems? But then again, maybe just drives more competition and more bridges and stuff get built between them wherever necessary. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, I've got community comment of the week. Comes from Fiendish Crypto, who honestly is an absolute riot. We've had him on the show, but anybody who doesn't know, if you get a chance to like meet up with him in person or see him at one of the BCH conferences or something, he is so funny. I fucking love Fiendish. But he posted this week in the hot dog price speculation channel with a joke. He posted, quote, "I was promised by this group that there would be a pumping this week. The promise did not contain a disclaimer that it was not financial advice. My lawyers have been informed and are in standby to take this further. Please ensure a pumping occurs before week out to prevent further legal action. Yours sincerely, Pumping Fiendish Jack." And then the Bogdanov twins meme of pump it. End quote. And I just thought this was so funny, not only because it made me laugh, it was just so ridiculous and so funny, but because it kind of gets to the theme of what we've been talking about, that there's chat and then there's reality, right? There's a lot of chat that goes on, including, think about, I can't believe, that there's so many crypto channels that are busy saying this coin is going to go to the moon 10,000x this week, and then they say in their little show notes, not financial advice, like don't sue me please, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, this probably, under whatever statutes or whatever, this probably does account for financial advice that you could be sued over. It's just that you're a peasant with 500 500 YouTube followers, and anybody you scammed was down to their last dollar anyway. Like, it's not exactly like they're going to be bringing out the big guns to sue you across some other jurisdiction in the world, right? But I just think it just gets to this theme of like, what are the consequences? Like on this show we talk about, okay, BCH, rise to global reserve currency, right? But I really am not out here recommending every different coin under the sun, but I think it's a genuine strategy that some people have, right? Pako, what do you make of all this? We didn't talk about the broader crypto market. Do you go in for some shit coining, some old coins, or what's the go? BTC only?
No, BTC only, but from time to time I like to gamble like everyone else, like put, I don't know, like $50 in something stupid like Pepe or the dog with the hat thing, just to see if I can make double or something. It's like putting money on I don't know, a horse or something like that. It's not something I take seriously. It's like, okay, this thing is rising. Maybe what happens if I put $20 there? If I lose them, well, I lost them. That's true. That's how I see it. It's not like I'm not orthodox about being Bitcoin only. That I cannot hold anything else. I don't hold them, but I play with them from time to time. It's okay to have fun.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's like betting on horses. That's really true. It's the new generation's horse betting. My grandfather is big into horse racing and greyhounds as well, actually, and so I do know a bit about that. People always I'll just chuck $20 on this horse. Huge industry just relies on a combination of plenty of people willing to waste $20 and some people willing to waste their entire lives, and between those two segments it's exactly the same as crypto. So brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, speaking of that, we've got meme of the week this week. It comes from Cindy Wang. For people who don't know Cindy, one of the former Satoshi's angels, she's Chinese, and I I think it's probably a combination of her individual personality and also the fact that Chinese sense of proprietary is perhaps a little different to what many people are used to. But she often, I've seen her do, this is one I was talking before about making statements that you would say on Twitter versus you would say in person. She would 100% say this in person. There's no doubt about it. I've seen her say stuff like this on podcasts and stuff before. But anyway, she posted on Twitter this week. Firstly, she had a screenshot of BCH USD with Bitcoin Cash at $383 plus 19%, $63 in the last 24 hours. So she posted the BCH price on the way up, and her comment was, quote, "Thank you, BCH. I can fuck my boyfriend at a fancy hotel tonight. Prayer hands, BCH, hashtag pump." End quote. So, Cindy, I'm very glad that you were enjoying a BCH pump. I think the whole community was certainly enjoying whatever BCH pumps, but everyone can enjoy it in their own way. And yeah, this cracked me up. This is one of those things when it comes across your timeline, you just instantly laugh. So that earned a repost from me. She also had some good follow-up comments for anyone. Recommended to follow Cindy just for the comedic value, you know. Pako, did this make you laugh?
It made me cry. It was that good. It was that good, actually. The moment you sent me that photo, I was out of words like right now. It was too good to know you found.
Exactly. You can't fake that kind of thing. You can't. Sometimes something about humor just spontaneous and yeah.
If you think about making a joke that good, you can't do it. You have to come with that on the spot.
Yes, the organic meme magic. All right, message to the community. I guess you've watched the show before. It sounds like you know how it goes. Message to the community. It's your chance to just say whatever you think the BCH community needs to hear. What's it going to be?
I would say maybe some folks in the BCH community think the same things that they say to people in the BTC community, is that it's been almost 10 years after block size wars. Things have changed and they are constantly changing, and everyone should be open to more discussion, like this one, for example. I say that you should look more into what's happening on our side, and we should also look more on what's happening on your side. We are not the enemy anymore. You know, it's not a war anymore, and the people who are in Bitcoin right now is not the same generation that used to be either. And I say it's the same in BCH. There are some people who still think they live in the block size wars, but it's not the time anymore. Maybe I think I will leave it at that.
Yeah, no, great comment. 100% agree. Totally co-sign that. And that's, of course, why on this show we do follow the BTC stuff fairly regularly. In fact, to the point that we got listener feedback, like, why do you guys talk about BTC? Stop talking about it so much. But I think it is related, our sibling chain over there, who even if they might believe that they have the real Bitcoin, well, they don't, but I'm glad that they can believe that. Like you said before, you know, your Bitcoin, just like you would say BCH is our Bitcoin. It makes complete sense to me. Okay. Big shout out to our FundMe contributors, Majamali Marcelo. Check out 2024.bcharg.com. That's already over, but I'm sure the videos will be going up soon, so it might be worth checking in on. Molecular, Erdogan Talk, the economics writer, BCH Ordis, LFG, Cash Stamps, biggest soundboard for BCH we have. Keep up the great job, guys. Peter Wooler, I think that goal should be and can realistically be everyone simultaneously having on-chain funds. Milton Friedman, Emergent Reasons, stay grounded, stay awesome, P2P, electronic cash for the world. Yeah, beer. Try to get Flag Costia on one of these next episodes. Would be a great discussion as he's opening up. On that, actually, he did capitulate a bit. We got him with the... I don't know if we talked about this on the show before, but we finally said, like, please stop mocking me with this anything but BCH thread, and he added a BCH donation address, so I haven't been poking him as much since, because he did admit to that, but he really just needs to say where I was wrong the whole time. But he's getting there. Big V in the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo gang, Bitcoin Cash Tokyo weekly meetup session community, HTTP, not HTTPS, http://bitcoincash.tokyo, and Bitcoin Jason, the legend. You are, I am, we are all Satoshi. Let's do our part. Thank you to our donators, our patrons, Ricky and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Start guide, FAQs, and links are at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Check out episode 85 and try Selene wallet at selene.cash. Shout outs for the show. Pako, who do you want to give a shout out to, and where can people find more of you?
I want to give a shout out to Bitcoin for making this possible. Well, you guys can find me on Twitter as at PakoVM, the same name you see here. But be advised, I am trying to be a little inflammatory with everyone on all sides. I am a critic of everything. I am almost a skeptic at everything. I love Bitcoin, and I think there are good ideas in every place, but I question all ideas. And I usually come across like a bit of an asshole, but I am a lot nicer in person. If you talk to me directly, I'm gonna be a lot nicer and ask you directly if I can be an asshole to you, just to keep the character.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome anytime to be contentious with me. I'm down for it. Jet, any shout outs this week?
My shout out goes to Steve, who reached out after one of the last episodes where I was talking about a friend who had this animation work, and all of that information was forwarded along, and I think there might be some stuff happening there. So it's very nice. And you, Jeremy, every time I complain about something on the show or say like, oh, there's this thing that I don't have the opportunity to do, it seems like the opportunity comes up. So all the listeners, Jeremy and Steve, thank you.
Amazing. And Pako, I have a question actually for you. Can you explain to me about this photo you have, this picture that you have on Twitter as well too? It looks to me like a Game Boy. It really just, like, the front of it looks exactly like the Game Boy Color that I used to have, and then it's kind of like an anthropomorphic Game Boy Color with orange Bitcoin blocks in it, I presume, and it's kind of running along with blocks trailing out the back. What is this picture about? Tell me.
Yeah, well, you are spot on the blocks. It's supposed to be a node that's running, and it's a pruned node because it's leaving some blocks behind. Okay. The face was supposed to be a Linux terminal, but I am not good at editing. I made this with ChatGPT or Bing, something like that. I try to have the same level of the word is cuteness, I think, that has the classic Sonic the Hedgehog design. That it's like pretty cute but ambiguous at the same time to be also a little cool. And I was pretty content the moment I saw it. I tried like a lot of prompts, and this one was like, okay, this one is perfect. It can be made into a sticker. If I pay someone to draw it for me, it's gonna look awesome. And at the same time, it goes with the name of the PakoVM because it's a machine. A virtual machine is a machine running inside your machine, and this is a machine as well.
No, I love it. I always thought this was a very eye-catching design. So okay, that's helped me to understand. Thank you for that. All right, brilliant. Well, I think that'll do it for the show. Thank you for listening, and until next time.
Reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. It's not just theoretical, these are real people with real lives. 500,000 kids? I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
This is the sound of freedom coming out your speakers. How they playing hide and seek or finders keepers. Let me define my thesis. While they treasonous deep in the malfeasance, a grand deception, 1,000 reasons. Keeping the truth out of our reach, the powers that be. No morale.